All right, QMJHL fans, we are back and live for another edition of these Facebook Live conversations. Today we have a very special guest joining us. As you can see, it's our first of one former player, should I say, who's not an actual player. So we have Zach Fucale here joining us to talk about a little bit about some playoff hockey. So Zach, welcome, and thanks for taking the time for doing this.
Happy to be here, Dave. Thanks for having me. And I like that you guys do these little lives there, especially during the playoffs where my two old teams are in the finals. It's pretty cool.
Exactly. So you beat us to it. The reason we wanted to get you on board is that we saw through your social media accounts that you've been following along, and obviously you're an alumni of both the teams we have in the finals right now. So I guess the tearing question that people want to know online is who you're rooting for these days.
I mean, I'm not rooting for anyone. I watched game one where Quebec beat Halifax, and then I missed game two,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's 1-1. So I'm not like rooting for anyone in particular. I mean, I had great experiences in both teams. We won in Halifax. I had some really thrilling moments with Quebec going game seven all the way to the end. But overall, it's just cool to see both those teams in the finals, and
Yeah.
it's a good time for me. Whoever wins, it's good for the city no matter what happens.
And we'll get to your time with both teams, but obviously people can see online that you're calling us from outside. So I guess we could start off
Yeah.
by asking, what are you up to these days? What's been keeping you busy nowadays?
So we're in the playoffs ourselves. We're in the division finals. Hershey Bears versus Hartford. Wolfpack. So we just got to Hartford today. We were traveling, and I went for a walk and gonna go grab some dinner after this. So, yeah, it's the playoffs. We're up to nothing in this particular round, but Hartford's a tough club. They play us real hard, and we even won an overtime game. So these are really tight. So we can't take them lightly because game three is gonna be a tough one.
For sure, and obviously everyone back here is rooting for you, and hopefully you guys go all the way. You were mentioning before we got on air, you have another QMJHL alumni who's playing up there with you in Hendrix
Yeah.
Lapierre. Now you guys had a friendly bet going into the playoffs, I heard.
Yeah, we just had a little friendly bet together. I think it was the second round, early second round. We were looking at the playoffs and what was going on there. I said, you know what? Like I like the Mooseheads this year because everybody was not really giving them a shot. Oh, the division's weaker, this, that. All those things that people say. Uh, so I was saying, Halifax has the heart to go all the way, and then Quebec was just a powerhouse all year, and then all those guys are healthy and they're going full throttle. So both goalies are hot. Both Russos are doing real good right now. So
Yep.
I thought, I'm going to pick those two, and he picked Sherbrooke and Gatineau to win it. So ends up I won because both my teams are in the finals. So I kind of win by default. So it's been fun just kicking it around with him, and he's following it much more closely than I am since he's a first year pro.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I was gonna get right into it in terms of playoff content, but I guess one of the icebreakers we have here with the guys who jump on with us is we usually ask them what their nickname is and the reason why they wear the number. Now, you in the pros, you're wearing number 60 these days, but you used to rock number 31 when you played in the Q. What was the reason
Yeah.
behind that one?
I mean, I wore a bunch of numbers in pro. When I first got to Halifax, it was 31 my whole career. Then also in Quebec, and then after that in pro, I was given 70, and then I went to 50 with the Vegas organization. Then I don't even know what number I was with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization, and I've been all over the place, East Coast, AHL. So I've worn 35 to friggin' 32, I think, in South Carolina. So for me, the
Yeah.
numbers kind of blur at this point. But 60 was interesting when I had the choice when I finally got the chance to really pick my number. I picked 60
Hmm.
because for me, one of the reasons I started playing was the era where Jose Theodore was playing in Montreal,
Yep.
and that really defined me as a young kid coming up. And I like Marty Brodeur. Obviously, was probably the top reason I started playing goal.
Yep.
But to have the chance to pick my number, I kind of combined both and just went to 60. And it was cool because that's when I played my first NHL game with that number. But 31, to go back to the original question, No particular. At that moment, there were a lot of goalies that were wearing 31. At that moment in time, Carey Price was wearing in Montreal,
Yep.
but a lot. It was kind of a trend, and at that point, and that's what it was offered to me. I don't remember what my partner was wearing, but maybe that was one that I wanted that was unavailable. It's a long time ago, you see, so
Yeah,
these
exactly,
stories kind of
exactly.
blend together already. I'm getting older, man.
For sure. And you mentioned it's a long time ago, and it's actually been a decade this year since you won
Wild.
that
That's
championship with
wild.
Halifax. Yeah, exactly. So pretty wild. So Halifax is due, and it's kind of funny because we've been reading online with the comments, and people say it's kind of people are pointing out the fact that Halifax and Quebec City are in the finals and they're two of the bigger markets, but it has nothing to
Yeah.
do when you think about it historically, because Halifax has only won once, which was a decade ago, like we said, and Quebec
Yep.
goes even further than that. They last won their championship in 1976. So you've played in both franchises, actually got the chance to win one in Halifax. So I guess we'll start
Yeah.
with that one. That was your rookie season or sophomore season?
Second season.
Second
Yeah.
season. So obviously got a taste of the action real quick in the league. So I guess we could start off by asking, what's your fondest memory from that championship?
Oh, I mean, that whole year was A to Z was just an amazing accomplishment for the whole organization. I think like we didn't lose many games. It was a lot of success.
Yeah.
The playoffs were great because we just gaining momentum every game, every round. We're just gaining and gaining, and it was just written in the stars for us to do that. And we had such a powerful club, probably one of the best in the whole CHL's history. So we got it. We even won at home, and then went to the Memorial Cup in Saskatoon and won that one as well. It's just so for the Memorial Cup experience, you have to understand how unlikely it is in a hockey player's career to end up there.
Yeah.
You have certain amount of window of time. With your age, for example, like from 16 to 20, certain players they play 1 year in junior. So even the odds of that is low, and you have to win your league or be a host. The odds is so low to have the chance to win in such a great organization.
Yeah.
And I consider myself very lucky in that sense, where I got to go twice in two different clubs. Like that's for me, I'm real grateful because those were
Yeah.
experiences that I'll never forget. So
Yeah, and it's crazy when you think about it. You mentioned how hard it is just to get there as a team, the fact that you got to
yeah,
win or be a host, but it's also crazy to win it because basically it makes you the best team out of 60 across the nation. So to be the
yeah,
top team out of 60 is just wild.
yeah, and to think of all the different junior leagues, all the different junior leagues, whether it's in the United States or even in Canada. There's some really really strong junior A leagues in in Canada.
Yeah.
To be able to win the Memorial Cup is like it's awesome. So Halifax got that one. So now the 10 years now, and they had a chance a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. They had a
Yeah.
chance. So it's very very hard to have a lot of success in junior with the high turnover of players. Like every given 1 or 2 or 3 years, your team changes a lot.
Hmm.
So that's just a testament to the standard that both these organizations hold,
Yeah.
and that's why I feel so grateful, so lucky, honestly, out of the whole CHL to have played for these two great clubs. Is I feel real lucky.
For sure. And we mentioned it's been a decade ago, but obviously you get put in pressure situations early on in your career and everything. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you in this interview that's being brought up online by one of the fans, I'll put it up on screen here. But Vincent is asking, do you have something you learned in the queue that you still use when you play? So what are some of those situations or things you had to face early on that you still, apply on today?
So I don't think that there's something like in particular that on the day to day I use from that time in my young career.
Yeah.
But you have to realize as a goaltender, all these different experiences you have, they're they're foundation. They're the foundation of what you become. They're the foundation of what you do, of your actions. So for me, there's not one thing in particular, but one thing I do know is that those 4 years I played in junior with Eric Raymond as a goalie coach, was such a great goalie coach. That set the tone for me for all the way to now. And the next years that I have in hockey is that
Yeah.
foundation, the habits, the principles as a goaltender that I hold now. those were all laid and kind of taught in those big moments, whether they were, you know, Wednesday games, Tuesday games that are kind of meaningless, and I don't know what location. We can name any place, you know, in January, to the high pressure games like May 24th and the Memorial Cup. All those little experiences, they add up. They create that foundation for you.
Mhm.
And so no doubt that I use today what I've learned back then. No doubt I just can't put my finger on it, since, you know, it's just a foundational thing.
It's
If
funny
if
how you word it
if
too,
you
because
kind of
when you
catch my riff
oh,
there.
definitely. Because I was going to say is that usually when we ask players to look back on their careers, what they say is mostly physical. You know, they learned how to recoup. You know, how to treat their body,
Right,
how to
right,
rest, and all that. But you, what you're bringing up is
right.
sort of a mental aspect. It's a foundation. So I don't know if it's just different because the fact that you're a goaltender and you sort of look back on those
Possible.
moments more.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, a goaltender's journey is different.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of repetitions, a lot of failure, a lot of goals. Like, to be honest, if you think about the time where you're 14, 15 years old, all the way to a possibility of a professional career,
Yep.
you know, imagine how many goals you've been scored, whether it's practice, whether it's the games. All those repetitions have a lesson in there, and you know, you add those up, and having a mindset, a growth mindset, and I get better every day type of mindset, you know, that I was lucky enough to be instilled as a young goalie,
Mhm.
and being taught by a good goalie coach, by Eric Raymond, and many more. um, Turns out that I have some good habits that have helped me today.
For sure. And you mentioned basically playing for those great coaches. You got to play for Patrick then in Quebec City. Now, do you feel basically playing in
No,
those
I
two?
never got to play with for Patrick. I had
Oh, it was Phil?
Phil Boucher. That's correct. Yeah,
Nice, nice. Sorry about that. Sorry
yeah.
about that. Should
Oh no, I
fact check
mean,
more.
just no, I'm not fact checking you. It's just I
No, no,
remembered
it's
that.
fine. It's fine. But basically, what I wanted to mention, the question is the same: is the fact that you played in those bigger markets. You played in both Quebec City and Halifax. You played in the biggest situations, both in with both those teams. Excuse me, at the Mem Cup. Now, do you feel
Mm.
that sort of helped you in your pro career in a way that you're a Montreal kid. You got drafted in the second round by the Habs. I mean, you started for Team Canada at the World Juniors. You played in all these crunch time games and these crunch time
Yep.
situations. So do you feel that you were sort of prepared for those situations coming out of the queue?
Sorry for the noise.
No, it's fine.
There's a train there in the background when downtown. Like I said, I feel like that window for junior players is so small. It's so I just feel I got lucky, right? I
Mhm.
got in a great situation, and I'm not just saying that to just humble myself. It's true. Like, you don't know where you're gonna land. You don't know what's really gonna happen to you, and all these factors. There's a lot out of your control.
Yeah.
You know, when you're first coming into juniors, a lot of that's out of your control. And I landed a fantastic spot uh, with great goalie coaching. I was just a kid with a good mindset, and I worked really hard, and turns out I got to play in all those situations. I earned them, no doubt. I earned them, um, but every time I got to play in those things, I never took it for granted, and I always told myself that I wanted to learn. Always wanted to learn. That was my big thing. Is that I didn't win every time. You know, I didn't
Mhm.
win every time. There were some moments, like for example, in Quebec, you know, we lost in Game 7. You know, that was a huge moment. You know, on the road, Game 7, double overtime. It was one of the coolest games I've ever been a part of in my whole life,
Y-
honestly.
Yeah.
In Rimouski, 2-1, and we lost, but that taught me something real valuable too. You have a lot of lessons in your wins, but a lot of the biggest lessons you have are in your losses.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky to be in a lot of great situations. And the 2015 World Juniors, where we won, you know, you can't forget at the 2014 one in Sweden, where we finished fourth and lost the bronze medal game, you know.
Yeah.
So there was always a stepping stone for me to grow and to learn and to become a better goalie. And we can look at all the great wins, you know, I was a part of and helped achieve, but there was a lot of losing involved. There was a lot of setbacks. There was a lot of this, you know. When I was 18, I didn't have a great playoff run at all. You know, we
Mhm.
lost, and I'm sorry. Bugs are grabbing me. But I had to pick myself up, and
Yeah.
all those wins we can talk about, but it was a process. It was a long process to getting to know, and I'm just lucky I got to live a lot of those things early.
Definitely, definitely. And even looking, I mean, statistically speaking, when you got to Quebec City, you went 8-8 before going 14-3 in the playoffs. So I mean, just to end off
Correct.
the regular season, you had to go through a little of adversity right there.
And I didn't even start right in the playoffs. And the decision, to be honest, if I look back and I'm really honest and humble about what's going on at that time, I didn't really deserve to start in the playoffs. You know, Booth was actually playing much better than I was.
Yeah.
Callum, my good buddy now, actually, we talk a lot. But that was another thing where I had to just stay humble and say, okay, well, this is happening, but okay, what am I going to do here? You know, it would
Hmm.
be easy to just, you know, start complaining and this and that. And I sure did do that, you know, in my young career. I did do a lot of complaining and this and that and play the victim. And, but that's how you grow. That's how you learn. You have people around you that, you know, they check you, they check your ego a little bit.
Yep.
And that's when you have the good friends around you that say, okay, hey, look, like enough of the complaining. Let's have a positive outlook. You know, my family always helped me with that. The goalie coaching always helped me with that. And, you know, whenever the time came, I was ready because I had that correct mindset and checked myself and ended up having some real great runs, even after some setbacks and some adversity.
Yeah, and it's even like you said, they check your ego at the door, and usually the teams that make it the farthest are the ones that gel the most. There's no
True.
egos, there's nothing involved in that. So
Yeah.
it's funny that you should bring it up. Now, obviously, we have you on because you've played in both cities, so I can't really let you go without talking about those cities. So we've seen it with the last two games in Quebec City. They set actually QMJHL records for the biggest crowds of all time at 18,259.
Yeah.
So they sold out both games. Now they're going back to Halifax, which is going to undoubtedly be sold out as well.
Sell out
So I
for
mean,
sure.
exactly. So looking back on your time in both cities, I guess what's the biggest comparison between both fan bases? I mean, is it louder in Halifax because it's smaller? Is it bigger in Quebec City? What do you
I mean,
remember the most from
both
those times?
both places are super loud, especially in playoff situations.
Yeah,
They're just great cities, just both of them. Quebec is historical. It's got that standard. It's got even the NHL kind of vibe because it's in a brand new building. You know, the history with the Nordiques. You know, the history is there. You can feel that, and the standard is up here, and
yeah,
that's how they've maintained it for so long. It's Quebec Remparts is a huge brand, in hockey. Um, in contrast, in Halifax is a little bit smaller city, but still, known throughout Canada to be a great organization and
yeah.
produced some unbelievable players. You know, if we go down the list, we don't really have to. It's funny. I saw a post by the one of the journalists covering the finals in Halifax. There's a list of all the picks and stuff, and if you look at that, that's a pretty impressive list
Yeah.
of NHL prospects that came out of Halifax. So it's very similar markets. Maybe the rink in Quebec's a little bit bigger, but I'll tell you what, those fans in Halifax are some of the most passionate people I've seen in the whole world. And that's why anybody who's played for either Quebec or Halifax is lucky because they're going to have some people supporting them all the way through, no matter what happens. And that's what I loved about Halifax mostly is the people. I want to go back there as often as I can because it's always a good time. I have some great relationships with my billet family. I stayed there for 4 years.
Yep.
I consider them my actual family now, right?
Yeah.
And that will never change. So the people in Halifax had a big impact on me. The organization did, but so did the experiences in Quebec as well.
For sure. And you mentioned you spent 4 years in Halifax, which is a lot of a longer time
Three
than you
three and a
spent.
half 3.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, which is a little longer than Quebec City, but I guess considering you factor in that your second family's there now and everything, I guess that I
Yeah.
was going to ask, what do you miss the most about Halifax?
Uh, I mean, at that time in my life, it was mainly hockey, right? At that time, when you play junior hockey, you go to school and you go home and you play hockey, and that's it, and little road trips and stuff.
Yeah,
But the biggest memories is the playoff runs we've had, and we were lucky. Even at 16, my very first year, we played Quebec in the second round. and we were down 0-3. We ended up winning in Game 7. So, I mean, the experiences, the cool experiences are endless that I had the chance to live, and I'm grateful for both those cities for sure.
For sure, for sure. And obviously, I could see from the comments here, people love you in Halifax. They're saying you're a Moose one day, you're a Moose forever. People are asking
For
if you'll
sure.
make it out to the playoffs or find some time
I don't
to
think
get
I'll
out
be able
there.
to. I have my obligations here with my own team right here. But
Exactly.
we're on our own run ourselves, so I got to be a little selfish and focus on us right now. But it doesn't mean that I'm not keeping a close eye on what's going on in Moose Country or in Quebec or anywhere actually.
Definitely. And we've got an interesting question here from Steven who's asking, has Zach reached out to Russo? So I guess, have you been in contact with any of the goaltenders? Do you
Which
keep,
one?
yeah,
No,
exactly. Exactly.
I have not. I don't know them personally. I've
Okay.
never skated with them. I don't know them. I just followed them from kind of from far. But you know, these guys are playing real well in the playoffs, and that's why both their teams are there. And to be honest, what are the odds of that? We were talking about odds and how unlikely, you know, kind of junior hockey is in general, but
Yeah.
having two guys in the finals with the same name is pretty awesome to me. I think it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. They're sort of two underdogs too. We wrote a nice piece that we
True.
put up on the QMJHL website. You should have a read into their stories. They actually faced each other in the playoffs at the U18 level as well. So that's
There you go.
it's sort of a payback story for them there. So it's pretty interesting. So I guess without skipping from the league to the NHL, I guess I can't let you go without talking about your season when you got called up with the Capitals. You had some pretty nice moments there. Obviously, you became the 24th, I think, goaltender in NHL history to start with his first career start, had a shutout. So I guess, can you take us back to that? What was going through your mind? Was that sort of like
Taking
an
me back to
unreal
that moment,
pinch
no
me
problem.
moment?
No problem. I'll go back to that moment. It's pretty amazing experience. I'll be honest with you to play. So it took me 7 years of
Yeah.
professional hockey to get there, and I had my share of setbacks. And I've been open to on many kind of podcasts and conversations and
Yeah.
articles and interviews about my journey. It was a little bit atypical. But I did go through a lot of adversity, some dark times personally, some questioning moments, some times where I wasn't just questioning myself as a person, but as a goaltender, what the hell I was doing. But somehow I managed to just keep going, and one thing led to another. Very quick changes of events from year 5-6 to the COVID year, and then getting an opportunity to sign with the Washington Capitals was like a blessing, and then having a really fantastic year that led to that.
Mm-hmm.
That game was. It's funny because people ask me after all that time, like, were you really nervous? And I was less nervous than I thought I would be.
Yeah.
If I was 20, 21, 22, I probably would have been much more nervous and much more on edge than I was that day. Um,
That's your time in the queue, man.
It was, yeah, maybe. A lot of experiences in pro sports and the queue, and maybe that's what it is, Dave. Maybe we're coming full circle, and all those experiences led me to just be calm in that moment and knowing that I was ready.
Yeah.
And I just played the game how I felt comfortable playing it, and it turned out that game, that 60 minutes, there were no goals, and doesn't always happen like that.
No,
Some nights are
exactly.
tough. Some nights are tougher than others, but I guess the stars aligned, and I had a real solid performance that day, and the team was really helpful on that day, and it was wild. It was a really amazing moment for me, taking all that time. It took a lot of time to get there,
Yeah.
and it was quite the moment.
For sure, for sure. And your streak went on too for quite some time. I think you ended up with almost another
Couple,
shutout in the next game. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So how it played out is I came in relief on the third period, which ended up with no goals, and then I got scored. Actually, in my opinion, a pretty bad goal. For me, it's a bad goal, but with like 50 seconds left in the game in
Yeah.
Minnesota, so it was a great streak. It was a great streak. Actually, I think There's no other goaltender in the history of the game of the NHL. Sorry, I don't know anywhere else, but in the NHL that have started the way I did. So that's
Yeah,
something I
exactly.
take a little bit of pride in.
Hey, I wrote it down here. 138 minutes and 7 seconds of shutout streak to start off your
Yeah,
career. So
that's wild. I can't believe it played out that way. I don't think I could have made that up myself, to be honest.
yeah, that's pretty unreal. So I have another question I want to pull up here from fans that are watching online. We got Dylan Gorman here who's asking if you could look back in time, basically looking back, what would you tell yourself at that age? You know, for if you had a message you could deliver to the guys that are playing the finals right now, you yourself, what would you tell them?
Wow, that's a good question. So what I would tell them
What would
if
you
I
tell your
was
18-year-old self going back into those crunch time?
um, I would tell myself that these are like moments that just fly by, and to not take anything for granted, because you look back, and whether you play pro or not, you there's 100 million scenarios that can happen after you play in junior hockey,
Yeah.
but these moments you'll remember, and you might as well just give it everything you have, because this is already a short window of time for young men to play in that league. Um, it's it's something that goes really quickly, and you're going to remember it forever. So there's no sense of holding back, or questioning yourself, or playing with any type of fear, because it'll pass by. And when you're my age, or other guys that have played in those moments, they're going to say that they don't want to tell themselves, I wish I was more free, or just play, just be yourself
Yep.
100%. No restrictions. Don't put any restrictions on yourself. That's what I would tell myself, is just like trust your game to 100%, and then after that you see where you're at, and you let the chips fall, and then after that you become my age, you play you play pro or not, and then you say, those were some awesome moments. It was a thrill. That's
Yeah.
what it is in the playoffs, is a hell of a thrill. So live it up. And that's that.
Definitely, definitely, and great advice, obviously, for a guy who can look back on his career, and obviously, you mentioned it earlier in this interview. I mean, you learn from your losses, so whatever happens down the line, you just got to make sure you leave it all out there. So, no,
Exactly. So there's no sense. Yeah, exactly. If you put it that way, and then I take it back. So there's no there's no sense in you, like, playing with any fear. There's no sense of you holding back your game, or saying, or questioning yourself.
mhm,
There's no sense in that, because you're gonna play the game the way you can play it, as hard as you can, and then after that, whether it was the right answer or the wrong answer, you're going to learn from that. And that's kind of the beauty of being 16 to 20, playing in such a incredible experience in the freaking Videotron Center, or the Scotiabank, or I remember it as the Metro Center.
yeah,
You there's no sense in holding back, because you're going to learn from it, whether you win or whether you lose. It's going to be a thrill, and you're going to look back, and it's going to be awesome no matter what.
awesome, awesome. Words of wisdom from one of the all-time greats. We're on the last minute here we had. So, Zach, obviously, I want to thank you for taking the time for doing this. You mentioned off the bat that you're in your own playoff run, so we will wish you the
Yes.
best of luck. Hopefully, you and the Hershey Bears go all the way, and go Halifax and go Quebec. Whoever wins, you'll be a happy
Yeah,
man.
that's right.
So,
I thank you for having me on, and we'll chat soon. And if anyone didn't have their question, you can always reach out and ask me. I'm always accessible that way. So if there's anything, you
will
just
do.
ask me, and I'll get back to you after the playoffs.
Will do. Awesome. Let's
Cheers.
reconnect. And people online who are watching, Zach, they love you in Halifax. They miss you a lot over there. So you left quite an impression there.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. See you around.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach.